Hello students, we're working on chapter 11, visual communication. So let's get started. What's the role of visual communication? So visual communication is important because it's not just about the words, but it's about that visual that communicates with us and gets our attention, as we all know from doing our exercises, whether it be a billboard we saw or a park bench or a wrapped bus. Visuals do some things better than words, as the old saying goes. A picture is worth 1,000 words. The image can be powerful and even shocking to get our attention. Here is an example of an ad clearly for tobacco, and this one says your beauty up in smoke, and it shows, what it looks like when you smoke and the effects of it. So those kinds of ads in pictures really try to get our attention, and they do. It's successful. Here's another example showing an ad here for visiting Nebraska. So the words aren't going to get you here, but hey, what's this guy doing? He's jumping from rock to rock, and strong illustrations along with the copy, which is the wording, is a winner here. So these are just a couple of examples. One last example here is Subaru demonstrates its go everywhere capability in a single image. You can actually see yourself in this car. The car isn't even the main picture here. The background is the beautiful mountains and the trail and the beauty of, being able to go out on an adventure. So visual impact. The effective use of visuals can be related back to that facets model that we talked about before. So when we're thinking about grace notes, and we're thinking about what gets people's attention, we have to be able to get that attention, keep that attention by sticking in the memory, cementing a belief, telling interesting stories, which there's plenty of from students who've received scholarships, and that will definitely help bring in more donors, more interest, more awareness. And it has to be something that's done quickly, as we know, because we could be listening to an ad on the radio and ready to change the channel versus driving by an ad on a bus or on a billboard or clicking through channels or even looking at our phone. And sometimes we have to get through an ad, but it's got to be effective and quick. And then anchor the associations. That means, what are you associated with? Are you something that is associated with safety, excitement, adventure, quality, value, things like that? Okay, so Coke here is a great example of visuals. They use their brand signature script to create a unified visual identity. And we know if we go into any grocery store or Target or Walmart, big box stores, that there is a block of beverages from Coke that basically take up half of the aisle. And they do a great job with that with visuals, whether it be the shape of their bottle or the script that they use, but we always know it's Coke. So brand image and positioning, getting into things like logos. Marketing communication plays a role in the creation of brand image, and much of this is conveyed visually, as we know. So a logo is the imprint used for immediate identification of a brand or company. And the brand image is also prominent in the package design. So when we think about advertising, in this case with what we're doing here for our project, we don't have a package per se, but we definitely have a logo to work with. You can make a decision if you want to tweak that logo, you want to keep that logo, or do something completely different. That's up to you and your group. But we do know that that identification kind of cements us as a customer. So it's on everything. So I have some visuals here. Obviously, the good old Happy Meal with the M, the golden arches, colorful images. On the left-hand side is Kleenex and how they took their basic brand of tissues and kind of made it fun. Rather than just a regular Kleenex box, they're making a typewriter and a whale and a house. And so a lot of companies do this with their logos. And recently, with Gay Pride Month, a lot of companies have changed their logo, at least for the month. I know that Johnson & Johnson has done that with quite a few of their products and just put that rainbow on there. So I think that is a great idea to communicate with the world about their beliefs and using their powerful logo to do that. Here's another visual. We all know the good old Michelin Man, but this has been since 1894, and they had their 100th anniversary, and evidently he slimmed down a bit, as all of these characters have. They've all kind of look a little bit better, maybe their cheekbones. I know Mr. Clean has kind of buffed. He's a little more buff than he was. Aunt Jemima is has a little more of a jaw, higher cheekbones, and the Jolly Green Giant, the same thing. So they've updated them to be a little more 2019. Here are some other iconic brands, so hopefully you know who they are. And if you don't, you can look them up. But these are characters that are associated with the brand. Some of them are old, some of them have been updated, but as soon as we see them, we know what they mean. And so that's how powerful they are. More on visual elements here. This is for the Panda Express and how they use their clever packaging to bring their customers and good fortune to the company. But again, all of that is really important. Everything associated with the brand is really important, whether it be a carry-out bag or a cup. I know Starbucks does this a lot. They're even now doing things where they're taking their cups and they're basically making them, at least in the airports, they're trying this out, that instead of using a paper cup, they're using reusable cups that you can drink out of and find a depository somewhere within the airport. So there's lots of things associated with packaging and products further than we think about on a regular basis. Here's another visual element. Wheaties, classic association between sports figures and this Breakfast of Champions. And on the right-hand side, this is way back, showing Johnny Mize and having a sports figure on there. This is very much detailed, whereas now we just have like Tiger Woods, for example, on the front, or whoever is the latest sports figure. Certainly, again, something you can look at in the grocery store. So visual storytelling. This is basically where we're setting up a visual narrative to connect with the reader or the viewer. And this is great for conveying abstract concepts, and the art directors design images that tell a story and create brand impressions. So there's certainly many companies that are trying to do this now to appeal to millennials. This is a really big push now, much like influencers, where you want some authenticity connected with the brand, not just something that you're just selling. So there's emotion and visual persuasion. Visual impact and storytelling come together in a persuasive message. They're designed to touch us and move us. In many situations, emotion is the key driver that turns us onto a message and keeps us watching it. So there's a lot of Subaru commercials. The example here is the extra gum commercial There's a new one out now, but this is kind of like an older one. And what I love about this is it kind of takes you through a story, but they also break it up. So you follow this story, and this is what this YouTube video is. And it's really simply talking about gum, but I love what they've done with a story connected with it. So what are the basics of design? So who do we start with? An art director, and this is a person in charge of the visual look of the brand message and how it's communicated. And there's a lot of things that are involved here. There's art, photography, film, animation, and they also work on corporate logos, office interiors, merchandising materials, and I mentioned before, shopping bags. Anything that is connected is all very much fluid. It's doesn't go off course at all. Every piece of information out there has to have the same message, and the art director is the person in charge of that. So one of the most difficult problems that art directors face is to transform a creative idea from their client into words and pictures. So think about it this way. You have Grace Notes, who has come to you with this creative brief and this idea of what they want to do. And you have to take that information in as the art director and create what they're looking for, and hopefully you hit it with them. So there's design, there's copy, there's visuals, there's sounds, and sometimes there's taste, smell, and feel depending on the product. So let's get into these areas a little bit more. So copywriters and art directors engage in visualization. So the copywriter, as I said before, is all about the wording, and they have to match up with that art director with the visual for the finished big idea. So the art director relies on a toolkit, as I mentioned before. So there's lots of things they pull from. It could be an illustration or an animation, photos, film shots, color, type, using bold type, different kinds of type, different design principles, the layout of the ad, and then the composition of it. Is it photography, video, or film? So here are some visual symbols that use different logos with symbolic messages. So I'm going to go here to the left first and look at the FedEx. So FedEx has, you probably already know this, has an arrow in the EX. Between the E and the X, there is an arrow that always lets us know that they're on the move. Tostitos, on the other hand, has the two T's are two people sharing a chip, and the salsa is the I, the dot on the I. And then NBC here uses a peacock, but also that peacock shows all different colors, which shows diversity in their programming. Illustrations and photos. Photography adds authenticity. It makes things more credible and realistic, depending on what you're promoting. Photography comes in handy here and is a great way to create a message. Illustrations and photos, again, it depends on what you're promoting. They can make a really big impact and simplify a message. They can be very artistic and make illustrations, which is what makes illustrations ideal for like fantasy. So here's a picture here of, and this is for Patagonia, and this is outdoor wear, and this picture is really has a lot of impact because yes, they're wearing this outdoor clothing that keeps them warm even in these amazing realistic places. That's the credibility part of showing off their winter gear. Here's another example, an iconic image. On one side is a photograph, which is fine, but once you put it into more of a kind of a lithograph here and put different wording under it, now it's become this iconic image, this hope poster. Once you're manipulating that image a little bit with color. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about an art director. How creative can they be by switching just a few things up can make a big difference in the way they communicate a message. So that use of color is really important and it builds brand identity. Certainly, we know that certain colors mean certain things, like blue is very calming, green is for health. When you think about different logos and how they use color to associate themselves in your head immediately, you see a swoosh, it could be any color, but it's for Nike. So it attracts our attention. Full color is used a lot in photography, print, and spot color can be added to black to accent or highlight elements. So what I did here was I have a YouTube video for you to watch. It's the logo evolution. I think it's pretty cool. It takes you through different logos of different companies throughout the years and how they've tweaked it and changed it up. Again, with Grace Notes, is that something that you want to do? Fantastic. If not, that's okay too. But this is part of the process. If you have found that through the information you've received that certain colors work better, or maybe, some of these companies, for instance, QVC, they change up their logo color depending on the month, the season, to reflect what's going on. But you still have that Q there for QVC. It's called the Q. But think of that in terms of other logos that are out there. They just, as long as they keep the one thing, like the Nike swoosh, they can change it up, but that image never changes with us. We know that what it stands for. Typography. That typography is a way that the ad's printed and gives it kind of like a different look. And I like to use the example here in Florida of Salt Life. That's a great way. As soon as you see that on someone's, hat or t-shirt, you know what it is, relating to the sea, the way they kind of use that different kind of pirate scribble to connect us. And they all look like that. So think about other companies. Think about the type and how important it is to connect with your audience and how we know that type right away. Here's another example of how using type in an ad for Nike, for Just Do It, what they did was they the trademark swoosh is so identifiable that the Nike name isn't even necessary on the ad. So Nike has never said is on this ad, okay, except at the very bottom it says NikeWomen.com with the swoosh. But what they did was they talk about, a woman's body, and notice what they did with the type. They curve it. That gets our attention. We might not read the whole thing, but it starts off with something interesting, my hips, and then it gives that little curve, and then at the end they have the Nike swoosh, and then you have the photography here that's colorful and interesting. So you can see how they brought in not only typography with the visual element and how impactful that is. So as a designer, more on the designer toolkit here for typography, we have to think about the font, if we want to use capitalization or not, if we want it to be blocked, what size do we want to use? And the Nike, here's a Nike ad again. Nike uses this a lot. They use different typography in this very quick YouTube ad that gets our attention. Again, something quick and easy. You might want to think about it when you're talking about Grace Notes, maybe in a social media post, something with Instagram, something with Facebook, depending on the vehicle you chose to use or you're choosing to use. But typography is something that is very effective. And now that we're talking about this and you're more aware of it, outside the classroom, I'd like you to really think about it and how important it is. So another example, the Ford Motor Company has evolved considerably we always know that Ford, that cursive writing there and how it has evolved. Okay, design principles, layout, and styles. How important is it, the layout of an ad, to get our attention? The way it is arranged, functionally and aesthetically. Is it pleasing? Does it guide our eye along the path in the ad? Okay, from left to right. How does it capture our attention? Very important. So I'm going to get a little more into this with print ads. There's a layout and there's an order that we like, and it's aesthetically pleasing. And these are examples of common layouts. So there's a picture window, which is a single dominant visual with a headline. And the copy goes underneath and the logo is on the page. Then there's all art, and this art fills the frame and the copy is embedded in the picture. And then you can use a panel or grid, which uses a number of visuals like a window or pane, and like in a comic strip panel. So I have some examples of what that looks like. So here are two different ad layouts for similar products, okay? They're both selling boots, waterproof boots. On the left-hand side, you can see how they're using the copy, you know, and it's coming right at you. I'm not even going to say this, Krakatoa boot is waterproof. It's waterproof. It's waterproof over and over again. P.S. It's waterproof. Okay, so they're using reds and blacks and boldness of copy and a small picture of the actual product, and then information on the very bottom. Now, this layout on the right-hand side has the boot on the right-hand side with some copy underneath it, and on the left-hand side, it shows it being used out in the snow and the footprints. So again, which one's more effective? Which side do you go? Do you read through it? Depends on who you are and what attracts you, and that's why it's so important to understand your target audience. If your target audience is a millennial, I'm thinking on the left-hand side, you want something short, sweet, you're going to get the information across, versus on the right-hand side, maybe a baby boomer or a Gen Xer wants a little more of a story here. They want to see more of a visual. It's calming, you're out in nature. Again, it all depends. They're using it more as artwork. Common print layouts, let's talk a little bit about those. Dominant type or all copy. Circus, which is combining a lot of different elements, and nonlinear can be read starting at any point in the image. Typically, the layout of an ad is functional and stylistic. It takes us from the left to the right. But, you know, anything goes to get our attention, to keep us engaged. It takes all different kinds of ads. And again, depends on the product, depends on the audience. Here's an example of a nonlinear ad, because it doesn't matter where you look. You know, yes, there's a dominant hashtag of orange chicken, hashtag orange chicken love, but we can look at it left to right. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of jumbled, but we can start reading anywhere on this text. So again, I want you to keep all of these elements in mind when you are creating your ad, whether it be a radio script, whether it be a billboard, whether it be an ad on Facebook, whether it be a print ad, depending on your audience. Again, why did you choose these elements? Do a little bit of the why behind it. We chose these colors, we chose this font, we chose this layout, we chose what we chose, and why. Okay, keep all of that in mind. It's not just something we threw up there. There has to be some design and strategy behind it. So the composition of your ad refers to the way the elements in the picture are arranged, And this is where, photographers and videographers are involved. They manipulate the different elements. And this is where the storyboard comes in. If you decide to do a commercial or video, a YouTube video, a storyboard is an effective way to present what you want to do to your client through different sketches of the scenes with key shots in it. If you choose a video or TV, you'll be creating one of these boards. Let's move on to environmental design and how important that is. So in bringing in the whole like integrated marketing communication, okay, so an environment in which goods and services are offered for sale communicates a lot about the brand. So different store environments are very important. And there's a lot of companies that do it right out there, and there's a lot of companies that don't do it right. And in the world of retailing that is having issues, brick and mortar, keeping people in malls, keeping people in stores, and not going online, what do you have to do to get people engaged? A lot of times it's experiential, like this picture up here on the right. For those of you who don't know the store Lush, it is a great store that brings you in with smells, and you get to try the product out, and there's lots of color, and they create their own bath bombs, and they shave off your piece of soap for you, and they tell you who made the soap and where they are. So, I mean, there's a lot of elements going on there. Then you have a company like, say, Urban Outfitters, again, bringing you in interesting kiosks, change it up a lot. Apple Store does this. Nike Store certainly does this. If you've ever had an opportunity to go to see the Nike Store in New York, it's a multi-level store with all kinds of elements going on. Okay, so now we're talking about print media. The different media have different design, production, and demands, okay? Obviously, newsprint is printed at a high speed using an inexpensive paper, that would be newspaper, versus a magazine that has color and the layout and some examples that are out there. I know most of you don't read magazines, but they are still an effective tool to get to specific audiences, specifically Gen X, definitely baby boomers and beyond. So print media, that's that outdoor media that many of you gave great ideas about. Things that need to be considered here is making the label or the package large enough to see it. It could be 3D, it could be extending beyond the frame of the actual billboard, using movable parts sometimes, anything to get our attention. A lot of them now have digital. Sometimes there's at least I've seen this, a billboard on each side of the highway that connect the two. Anything to get the attention of the consumer. Digitization, you're going to see a lot of this kind of activity happening at convenience stores now, fast food stores. They give like that out-of-home advertising with the digital screens at gas stations. So it's all around us all the time. Oh, certainly at different ballparks, sporting arenas, things like that, where they can change up the ad on a regular basis. So now we're going to get into more the video end of things. Again, we get a little deep into some of these areas, and I know all of you are not going into advertising, but I think it's important to know what the concepts are so that when you are working in marketing and you do get to hire an ad agency, that you understand the concepts and the words so that you're in the know, you're knowledgeable, you're educated. So, yes, you probably won't ever film a commercial in your life, but it's good to know what, the different buzzwords are. So, local retail commercials usually are done inexpensively. These are the kinds of ones you're going to see on like Comcast Spotlight, for local places like a window company, a car dealership, someone in the community, and they're recorded at a local station, and they're inexpensive, sometimes using family members. When you're creating a national television, now you're TV commercial, now you're getting into more complex and specialized skills. And the art director takes that storyboard and they bring it to life, um, with the um, with the story that has been created. So who does what in the production part of it? Okay, we know the copywriter writes the script. The art director in TV develops a storyboard, and the producer handles all the other stuff. So it's arranging the set, casting the talent, keeping in budget, and all these kinds of things. So we're going to get into that a little bit more here. So you have a director who's responsible for filming the commercial. The cinematographer directs the photography and the camera crew and shooting the film. The composer adds in the lyrics, the music, whatever the sound effects are. The arranger orchestrates the music for various instruments and voices, and the editor takes all these pieces and assembles them and cuts them down and makes them what the commercial is. Then you get into, there's possible animation that could be used. Certainly like in Geico ads with a little gecko. There's stop motion with inanimate objects, claymation, puppets. I know in the Trust campaign they use puppets, very clever. So there's 3D filming that goes on. So there's lots of different things that are combined together to create an ad that engages us, the audience. So just a little bit about the production process. So you have that message design here in the chart where you get the client to approve the advertising strategy, you choose your format, you write a script or a storyboard, and you always get your client to approve it. So the pre-production part of it is finding the production house or the animation house, because you don't necessarily do everything inside. You find all the people that are going to make up the set, casting the talent, locating the props, getting bids for the production. Then there's the day of the shoot, or more than one day. And the director manages that, records the action, records the music, creates a computer graphics. And in the post-production side of it, they edit it down, mix in the music, give the presentation tape to the client. And then if they like it, they tweak it as necessary. So again, as I said, you may never do this in your life, but it's important to understand the steps that go into creating an ad in the video sense. So the pre-production notes describes every aspect of the production, meeting outlines every step of the production process, talks about problems that may arise when you're talking to your client, because they always want to stick on a budget and a timeline. The day of the shoot, each scene is called a take. And every day they go through the scenes are called the dailies, and rushes are the rough versions of the commercial assembled from cuts of the raw footage to show the client. The gaffer is the chief electrician person for sound. The grip moves the props around. The audio director records the audio of the shoot or the sound. And if the sound is being recorded at the time of the shooting, a mixer operates the recording equipment. So there's a lot that goes on and goes into commercials that we see on an everyday basis. Then the post-production part, that's the video editing. You have a rough cut that you edit it down and make it into the 10, 30, 60-second or more video that you see. So now we're going to, last couple of slides here, we're going to talk about your web design. Web pages, especially first screen, should follow the same layout as posters. So when we talked about redoing the Grace Notes website, tweaking it, offering suggestions, there's certain rules that you have to follow, and that the graphics should be eye-catching, and the everything should be easily downloadable, keeping the type simple and the colors engaging, and using tools such as motion, animation, and interaction navigation is always a plus. But you don't want the pages to be too cluttered. You want to simplify it with different tabs at the top, taking people through the various areas of the website. I have an example here of the Oreo website, of course, again, something food related. But you can see how they involve you in the types of products they have, the stories behind them, different ways the Oreo can be, opened and dipped into milk, and videos, contests. So there's a lot going on here. New products. So take a look at that. And I always say, if you like one website, it doesn't matter if it's food or a nonprofit. You can kind of, not reinvent the wheel here and come up with ideas from a lot of different places. Web advertisers find ways to make imagery more engaging by having clear navigation. They also can customize the site to the visitor, much like Amazon Prime will say, welcome back, Eileen, and look, you have this in your cart, or we recommend this from other things that you've purchased. Online video certainly is a plus for action on small screens, tablets, cell phones, being able to customize your site so that someone can really see the full site no matter what they're looking at. Okay, so this is the last slide. We're going to be moving on to chapter 12. And we will be, let's see, chapter 12 is more about the media basics that we'll be going through, and how to place your media and decide on what media to use. And that's what we'll be talking about in chapter 12.